It's your girl, Hope TV Movie Bestie, and I watch good shit. And I just got done watching this week's episode of Your Friends and Neighbors. Now, we opened the episode up with Ashe talking to Coop, showing him, hey, I caught you stealing from me. And he's like, look, I'm going to need that book back. And so he says, it's a gift from my wife. It holds sentimental value, and I need you to go get it back. And he's like, and why are you doing this? Is this some kind of Thomas Crown Affair situation? Shout out to Michael B. Jordan. I can't wait to see his rendition of this next year, but still. Anyway, so Coop is like, look, I'm just trying to dig myself out of a hole. And he's like, I'm sorry, I stole it. I honestly just thought you wouldn't notice it. And so he's like, well, I did, and I need it back. And you need to go get it now. And so Coop's like, so just like, you're not going to the cops, right? And he's like, just get my book back. And so Coop's like, okay. So meanwhile, at Coop's house, Allie, she's still mad at Coop, but she needs a ride to school the next day. So she's like, I'll talk to you if you take me to school. So he's like, all right, cool. So he takes her to school and she's really nervous. And he's like, don't worry. And he's like, they're going to love you. And she's like, duh, of course they're going to love me. She said, I'm worried I'm going to hate them. And so he's like, okay. So she gets out, and while he's dropping her off, he sees Tori. And so he's like, okay, hey, Tori, everything okay? And she's like, not now, Dad. Don't talk to me. And he's just like, oh, okay, cool. So, meanwhile, Mel, she goes and she talks to Tori's Princeton interviewer. She gives him this sob story. Tori's just not herself lately. She's going through a lot. He gets her to rescind her rejection to Princeton. So Mel thinks she done did a good job. And I'm like, Tori was very clear she don't want to go to Princeton. The problem wasn't her rejection. Grace and Baby, they're at their sonogram appointment. They're doing great. Barney's like, hey, it's just one of them babies in there, right? And so the doctor's like, yeah. And Grace is like, what the hell? He's like, I'm just saying, we don't need no more surprises. And she's like, what other surprises you been getting? And he's like, nothing. This just enough. So she's like, okay. Back at school, Hunter and Delilah are talking. And Morgan hates this. Every time she see him at school, she like, what are they talking about? She gives Delilah the stink eye. And I'm like, Morgan, do you want Hunter or do you not want him? Because Delilah, I'm not even convinced she really wants Hunter, but it's just the fact that she knows she can get Hunter and she like playing this little cat and mouse game with you. And so I'm like, girl, if you want this man, you better start talking to Hunter. Like, all you doing is looking at Delilah and like, fuck y'all doing? No, girl, go talk to your man. Like, because Hunter, he's just enjoying all this attention. So you about to lose your man. Coop, he tries to go get the book back. So he goes to his dealer, Lou, that he sells all his stolen goods to. And he's like, look, I need to get that book back. And she's like, Coop, it don't work like that. Like, it's gone. He's like, gone? You only had it for like 2 days. And she said, well, I'm very good at my job. And so he's like, look, I need the book. Something happened. And she said, oh, you got caught. And she's like, oh, Coop, no, I don't want no parts of this now. And he's like, look, I really need to get the book back. Can't you just like call the buyer or like put him in contact with me? And she's like, Coop. He's like, please. And so she said, okay, I'll make the call, but that's it. Like, that's all I'm doing. And he's like, okay. And so she said, how much money you got? And he said, what you mean? I got the 100,000 you gave me. And she said, oh, no, you gonna need like 300K. 300? He was like, what? And she said, Coop, I told you it don't work like this, and I'm very good at my job. He's just like, damn. Barney, he's meeting with Nick. Now, Barney has concocted this idea that this is how they're going to wash the money that him and Coop and Elena are stealing. They're going to funnel it through these gems that Nick has. So he goes to Nick and he hands them this paperwork for power of attorney. And so Nick's like, power of attorney? What's this? And he's like, it's just, so I can do business on your behalf. And he's like, well, should I run it by my lawyer? He's like, oh, I already did. And, he said everything's cool. So, just sign. And so Nick, old dummy, he don't ask questions. Nick's like, all right. And so then he's like, Barney, you okay? And Barney's like, yeah, why? And he said, you seem really nervous. And he said, I'm always nervous. And he's like, yeah, but you seem more nervous than usual. And so Barney's like, well, you know what? Grace, she pregnant. And so Nick is like, dude, that's great. And he's like, yeah, it's great. And so Nick's like, you the man? He's like, what's this, baby number 3? Like, way to go. Back at Mel's house, Tori, she pissed about Mel getting her rejection rescinded. And Mel's excited. Mel's like, I know you just made a rash decision. You probably want to think about this. So they giving you time. And she's like, I didn't make a rash decision. I want to figure my life out on my own. And Mel's like, okay. And so how you plan on doing it? And she's like, I don't know. That's part of figuring it out. And Mel's like, no. And so, Mel tries to psychoanalyze her. And she's like, look, this is what I don't need from you. And so, Mel's like, I'm a professional. I know what I'm talking about. And she's like, do you? Because you seem like you just want to make me just like you. And she's like, with all the shit you got going on, she said, why in the hell would I want to be anything like you? And Mel's just like, and she's like, yeah, I'm out of here. Now, I agree a little bit with Tori. Mel do got a lot of shit going on. And I do think she should kind of be able to figure out her life on her own. She need to go to college. But Tori, you got to stop cussing your mom out. Who are you talking to like this? And you do need to get a plan. Okay, fine if you don't want to go to college, but what are you going to do? You just keep saying, I want to figure it out, but you don't seem to be making no kind of steps or movement or nothing to figure it out. So what you plan on doing? Child, these kids. Elena, she just got her citizenship. So she's all excited. They're having a party for her at the house. And Coop shows up. Coop got her a Cartier love bracelet. And she's like, Coop, I told you, you ain't got to steal one of these for me. Because in early episodes, she was saying how everybody, in town got this bracelet. And Coop was like, nah, I would not do that. He was like, I went out and bought this for you. And it's a receipt in there. And she said, what? You spent Cartier money on me? And he's like, yeah, this is a big day. How often do you get your citizenship? And she was like, Coop, thank you. And so she's like, but, it is giving basic white bitch. And so he's like, well, okay, if you don't want it, it's a gift receipt in there. You can return it. And so she's like, nah, I ain't gonna do it. She's like, but thanks. What you playing now? And so she said, well, I'm trying to get my parents here to the States. I have to be able to show a legitimate income, and not just a legitimate income, but that I could support bringing 2 other people here. And so she said, so we need to get this money together, because on my little maid salary, it ain't gonna do it. And Coop's like, okay, yeah, we're going to get back in the game. And so she's like, okay. Now, her and Coop have a little something right here. And I'm like, y'all like each other? What's going on with this? Because it's definitely a little energy, a little vibe when he hands her that bracelet. And so he's like, all right, well, I'm going to let you get back to your party or whatever. I just wanted to say congratulations. And she's like, okay, cool, thanks. Sam and Ashe, they go on a date. He was going to take her to this place everybody go to. And she's like, ooh, I'm just trying to be low key. So he takes her to this little hole in the wall pizza joint. It's very good. They eating, they having a good time. And she start asking him about, what he do. And here he go with this same, I'm into shipping. And she's like, and what else? And he's like, nothing. That's it. And she's like, you being evasive or it's really boring? And he's like, can it be both? And she's like, okay. And I'm like, I still do not think Ashe is just shipping stuff. I think he trafficking drugs. That's what I think he's doing. But we're going to find out what we're really up to, I guess, as the season progresses. Back with Allie and Coop. So Allie, she starts telling Coop this story about these rats at Harvard, where they took all these rats who were all exactly the same, and they put them into these boxes, and they labeled one set of boxes smart rats, and they labeled the other box dumb rats. And so they just randomly placed rats in there, and then they gave these rats to these students and said, okay, put them through this maze. And what do you think happened? All the rats that were in the dumb category, they couldn't complete the maze. Like, they couldn't do it at all. And so Coop's like, what we talking about here? Where is this going? And she's like, well, Coop, I'm the rat. And she's like, if you don't think I can do it, I'm not going to be able to do this job. And she's like, can you just, like, believe in me? And so he's like, oh, okay, all right. And so while they're having this conversation, here comes Tori in the house. And he's like, Tori, what you doing here? And she's like, yeah, I can't do mom anymore. I'm moving in. And he's like, okay. And so Allie's like, what? And he said, yeah, you saw her too? And he's just like, yeah. So Coop, next day, he meets with the buyer. Now, who is the buyer? Ashe. And Coop's like, what's going on? What is this? And so Ashe's like, hey. And he's like, you're the buyer? You bought your own book? And he was like, I told you it has sentimental value. And he's like, you know, the book buying world, collectors, it's not a giant world. So yeah, I was able to find it. And he's like, okay, so why did you even have me come here? Like, what's all this about? And so Ashe starts to tell him, which we get a tiny piece of what Ashe is into. But Ashe tells him that he's on the OFAC list, which is the Office of Foreign Asset Control list. And so he says, basically, you know, the people that he does shipping for, some of them, the government is not a fan of their work. Therefore, they don't like him either, which means that his assets are vulnerable to seizure. I need you to invest some money for me and manage it, but I also need it like clean and not subject to be taken from me. And so Coop is like, you know that's illegal, right? And he's like, okay, I don't think robbing houses is legal either. And so Coop's like, I can't do that. And so he's like, why? You're an investment manager, like you dealt with people's large amounts of money for years. Like, what's the difference? And he's like, they wasn't on the OFAC list. That's what. And so he's like, I'm sure you'll figure it out. And he's like, I give you 48 hours. And Coop's just like, what? And he's like, look, I tell you what, I'm going to give you 48 hours to get a plan, or we can both go to jail. And Coop is just like, what? And he's like, yeah, you want to get some cake? And so Coop's like, I got to figure this out. Coop, he is at Mel's house. So he's talking to her, and she's like, so how's it going with Tori over there with you? Y'all buddy? And he's like, well, I ain't gonna lie, I am glad to have her home. He said, you know, I lived with y'all for 18 years, and now my house is lonely. And he says, so even if she is just running around slamming doors, he said, I'm glad she home. And he said, don't worry, she ain't talking to me either. And I was just like, I don't understand what she's doing. I'm going to lose her, Coop. And he's like, you're not going to lose her. This is a thing she's going through. She'll figure it out. And she realizes that she needs her mom. And she's like, well, even if that happens, like, I am losing her because I'm going to lose her to college or to the world. Like, she's not a kid anymore. She is right. She's about to be 18 and she ain't going to be living in my house and doing everything I say. And she's like, next it'll be Hunter. He'll be gone. And then what am I going to do? She's like, I spent my whole life taking care of these kids. And now who am I going to be without them? And Coop's like, don't worry. Like, You'll figure it out. You'll be fine. And she's like, we were never supposed to get this old. And Coop's like, we blinked. He's like, don't worry, it'll be okay. Later that night, he's having drinks with Barney. He tells Barney that he got caught. And Barney's like, what the hell? I just got the companies up and running. I'm ready to legitimize our money and you get caught? And he's like, yeah. He says, I got caught by Ashe. And he's like, what? Why would you even rob him? And he's like, why not? Now I gotta make this deal with him. He wants me to, manage this large sum investment for him. And so Barney's like, how much? And he's like, major, because Ashe told him 400 million. Coop's like, I don't even know if I should, be getting involved. And Barney's like, well, I mean, I don't know if it's a lot of money. And Coop's like, Barney, what's going on with you? And Barney said, I don't know. I guess crime fits me. Barney goes home. Him and Grace, they have wild, crazy sex. She's like, don't take this the wrong way, but that's better than usual. And he's like, you're welcome. What's gotten into you? And he's like, I can't just want to please my woman. And she's like, I know that's right. And so he's like, and I'm not going to go to work for your dad. And she's like, oh, that's what this was about. Hunter and Delilah, they hanging out because she had invited him to come over later. She's like, you're into music. My dad has a whole studio in the house. And he was like, oh, does he play an instrument? And she was like, no. She said, my dad just be buying shit, doing stuff. And so he comes over. It's a nice studio. He's like, whoa, this is like crazy dope. And she's like, yeah, my dad like to flex, even when people aren't looking. They having a good time, kind of hanging out. Delilah, she draws Hunter. She's really good at drawing. They sitting on the couch talking. Morgan FaceTimes Hunter. So Hunter doesn't even answer it. And then here go Delilah. She kisses him. And she's like, you really should do something about that girlfriend. I told you, Morgan. Your days are numbered, girl. Coop, he's got a plan. So he meets the next day with Ashe. They on the golf course. So we're going to do this thing. And he's like, but I'm going to need a lot more than 400 million. And so Ashe is like, how much you need? He's like, 1.1 billion. Yes, with a B. And Ashe is just like, what we need all that money for? Like, first of all, I would have passed out. Like, what do we need that much money for? I just would have been out. So Ashe was like, what are we going to do with all that? Coop starts explaining it to him and how he has to cover his tracks and all this. And so Ashe is like, all right, we partners. 1.1 billion. Okay. He's like, come on, let's go get some drinks and stuff. And so Coop is like, we're not like friends and buddies and cool, right? He's like, you are blackmailing me. And he said, why can't two things be true at the same time? So that evening, Hunter is over at Coop's house. And he's like, Dad, what can I say by text that'll be nice to break up with somebody? And Coop was like, oh, that's easy. Don't. And I said, thank you. And he was like, it would be so much easier if I just did this by text. And Coop's like, look, the rules of breaking up and dating is like, don't be a dick. And he was like, if you're going to break up with somebody, you need to do it in person. You sure? And Coop's like, yes. And then he's like, it'd be a lot easier if I could just text her. And so he said, all right, well, what's the girl's name? And he said, Delilah. And he said, oh, yeah, Ashe's daughter. And so he's like, all right, well, you need to handle your business with Morgan. And then once that's clear, then find out what's up with Delilah. And so Hunter's like, okay. So Coop is putting his plan in action. So he's out schmoozing with all the investment companies. I got all this money. Who want it? He having a blast. And Coop's just like, this feels good. Like, he's like, I still got it. And so the episode ends like that. I'm just really interested in what's really going on with Ashe, how this whole moving the money is going to work. Also, what's going to happen with Coop robbing and stuff, because now he has to focus on this very real job. And cleaning, well, not cleaning, but making a lot of money not noticeable. And I'm like, how he gonna do that and be robbing? And Elena, she is very much invested in continuing to rob because she's trying to bring her family here. And Barney got all this stuff going on with the baby, and he trying to show up his father-in-law. And I'm like, y'all got a lot going on. You know the deal. Let me know what you think in the comments. Like, subscribe, and follow. I'm on all the socials. I'm your TV movie bestie, and I will see you on the next show in the next episode. Bye, y'all.